Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to today's episode of I Am the Universe with Martin Cowart. And I'm so excited today to have my friend and really one of the founding members of the Diamond Mine Academy and a longtime friend of mine and the Mankind Project. We went through certification together over the years. His name is Carlos Legaspy. He is the CEO of Insight Securities. Carlos has gone on to become one of the full leaders in the certified leaders in the Mankind Project, and I've decided to bring the Mankind Project teaching into the world as he does too. So, Carlos, we've decided today. First of all, introduce yourselves, and then I want to talk about who we both decided to be as the influencer that we want to dedicate this show to. So, tell us a little bit about Carlos Legaspy and what you'd really like our listeners to get out of today's conversation.
Thank you, Martin, for the invitation. Well, as you described, part of my life's mission is to approach the financial industry with consciousness in mind. You know, it's in Mankind we talk a lot about shadow, which is the unowned or discarded subconscious, and that drives many times our behavior. And in Wall Street or the financial industry, shadow is rampant. And it's a shame because it's such a place that could do so much good, create so much abundance. And so I said, well, I'm going to go into the lion's den and try a different approach to finance and create something that can be both profitable and create well-being for all stakeholders, clients, employees, affiliated advisors. And I've been doing it for a little bit over 30 years. And sometimes shadow fights back and knocks me on my ass, and I get it back up and keep going. But that's one of the things I do.
I know, and I love it. And we decided together before, every week I dedicate the show to someone who's been a big influencer in my life. And I used to be in the investment banking world as well. And we both decided that Ray Dalio was the influencer of this show. He's influenced me, and he's influenced Carlos, and exactly what he's talking about. He has shown the way for he's become one of the wealthiest hedge fund managers in the world based on exactly these same principles that we as investment bankers could be doing a lot of good in the world if it was coming from a place of love and of the heart and for the betterment of others. So, Carlos, I want to just so that's who we're dedicating the show to today is our influencer of the week, and that's Ray Dalio. Carlos, why don't you start out by sharing your reasoning for why Ray Dalio is an influencer of yours, and take it from there, and we'll talk about the crisis at hand and some things that the corporate world could do to put pressure really on the Ugandan government to maybe rethink about what they're doing.
Well, I think a lot of it, I put it in my introduction, is precisely a manifestation of that philosophy of that one can be successful in the financial industry while creating well-being for many. And normally what his teachings and what he shares embodies the intersection of both sides, and I think that's, for me, that's kind of a role model.
Yeah, for me too. So thank you for that. So we're just going to get right on into this. So being one of the founding members of the Diamond Mine Academy, one of the founding board members, you're really aware and these guys that are in jeopardy. What do you want to say first to the LGBTQ African men and women who are living in such difficult and challenging times? I mean, they're all scared over there. What's the message you'd like to give them today who are listening?
Well, for me, first, my heart goes out to them. For no fault of their own, they've just been picked as a target. And during history, that's unfortunately is part of our human history. From time to time, power structures pick a target to blame and to use that us against them message to perpetuate themselves in power. And unfortunately, and in Uganda, but not only in Uganda, but many of sub-Saharan Africa, the politicians in power have found homophobic messages, anti-LGBT legislation. It's a good way to distract from other failings that they have in running the country, and saying, well, you're in a bad situation, not because of my incompetence as a ruler, it's because of them. And it's a tragedy, and it's a very old story, unfortunately.
Yes, it is. It's just history repeating itself, isn't it?
Yes.
A bad dictator, rulers who don't know how to rule, who don't know how to govern, and they just destroy their own countries, and they want to blame it on somebody, on some innocent people, really, isn't it? Yeah,
exactly.
So we're here, Carlos, and here what we wanted you to know is that while we're encouraging all of our African LGBTQ brothers to go undercover right now, take off anything that would identify you as part of this community, so that people can see you as it's just African people, beautiful African people that you are. And so that's going to be one of the things that I want to just myself say, bring out, and Carlos and I have talked about, is if you know that the government is scapegoating you, not because you're an African, but because you're LGBTQ, to take some precautions right now and go undercover and remove any type of identifiers on your public websites and anywhere else in the world that might be showing you as a target for this really mean and unfortunate scapegoating. So, Carlos, tell us a little bit about let's now move over to, as a CEO of one of the largest, oldest minority-owned investment firms in the United States, and the CEO, what do you want to say to fellow CEOs right now who are watching or listening, who could have a significant impact on changing the course of the world, really, from this?
Well, again, they're always speaking up. It's silence is complicity, and it's a message gets repeated and transmitted, may seem futile until it reaches a tipping point, and then that's when revolutions happen, when something just completely transforms, and we don't know where that tipping point is. But we do know that if we remain silent, that tipping point will not occur. So it's by not burying under the rug, not saying, well, that's far away, doesn't affect me. We're all humans. We have one humanity. So that awareness, if we happen to be in a line of business that has contact with that region, you have a greater responsibility, because you do have a possibility of more influence. But even if I'm not conducting business in the area, just by making my employees and my stakeholders aware, maybe they do have that networking effect, those relationships or contacts in that region. I've found, and that's why I want to talk about love, is sometimes confrontation has the opposite effect, because it allows the powers that are oppressing the target group, in this case the LGBT community, to see they're trying to impose this on us from outside. These are African values and messaging like that it's incorrect, but it can be twisted, as opposed to a message of trying to trigger empathy, or the other, and messages like, do you like to be treated this way because of the color of your skin? No. Okay, then why do you want to do the same thing to somebody that loves differently? kind of try to connect through that empathy that we
Yeah.
carry as humans.
Yeah, I think I agree, and I think it's what you're saying is by using what we might call the power of the pulpit,
Yes.
being in that position of power, of influence, to be able to just raise awareness to it, and when we bring awareness to it from those positions of the power, that we can begin to make transformation happen toward people understanding what the problem is. That's the first thing, is understanding what the problem is. And right now, what I'm discovering is that a lot of people in America just we're not talking about this. They're just not aware of it. So what we can do to begin with is by using what I call the power of the pulpit. And that goes, and as a spiritual teacher, that goes beyond, and as Episcopalian, that goes to the power of the pulpit in religious leaders, spiritual leaders, the Pope, the Archbishop of Canterbury. They need, the Pope has already come out and said that use the power of the pulpit to say it is a crime to say, you cannot say that someone, because of their sexual orientation, is illegal. That no one is illegal for being who they are. I'm still waiting on the Archbishop of Canterbury, which has a bigger influence in Uganda than the Pope, because a lot of this is rooted in Anglo-Catholic teachings, missionaries who went over there and taught this hate, really, to Africans when they came in and conquered their countries. And so we need now, I think we need not only corporate leaders, I'll speak on the side of being a spiritual teacher, is that we need to lean into our spiritual teachers around the world and leaders to begin to use the power of the pulpit to raise awareness around this. Because what we need right now, both at the corporate level, leadership level, and at the spiritual leadership level, is light, a beacon of light in this darkness. We need to become the beacons of light. We need to become the lightness for these people. So that is one of the things that I can agree with you on, is that we as leaders, whether it's on the spiritual side and the religious side, because this is really a lot rooted in religious dogma that's just unhealthy and hateful, really.
But it's also a twisting of that message. At the end of the day, it's the driver said, like, why now? And there have been previous attempts, in 2014, and then the court invalidated the law, but now they're trying it again. If you see it, it will mimic political changes that brings it to the surface. But it's been, the outrage in the world has had some impact, though.
Yeah.
Now the president is kind of softening it up, or maybe backstepping a little bit, because he realizes that I think they went too far. It's a shame that it has to exist at all, but at least that's measurable impact.
Yeah. So if we could just prevent, one of the ways we can make an impact is also to put enough pressure on the president of Uganda not to sign this law.
Correct.
And I think that is true. That is what's happening, and we need to continue to do that.
Yeah.
Are there any things that you could suggest to leaders of like big companies like Coca-Cola and Google and companies like that do have a huge footprint in all over Africa, that they could be bringing awareness into their own companies there to say this is just not going to be tolerated?
Well, again, it's the pulpit, and it's also can be done through rewards, in maybe neighboring countries or things. If a country is welcoming, for refugees or things like that, there's support or financial support, or that, so that it's something tangible. Like I said, I am concerned that anything that's confrontational is not effective, because it feeds exactly into that narrative, as opposed to, hey, how come we're not getting that support that our neighbors are getting? Well, because we're being assholes. That's why. Okay, well, let's not be assholes. You know what I mean? So it's an accurate diagnosis leads to better outcomes. And again, unfortunately, it boils down to politics and populism and and targeting a vulnerable group because they're easy to pick on. And that's a shame.
Yeah, I want to pick up on what you just said because that is true. Neighboring African countries are watching, and that is a beautiful response. Let's don't focus on the problem, on punishing people. Let's focus on how we reward people for good leadership. If a country like Uganda is having financial problems, why don't we say to them, hey, if you will look at and see your people, all your people as your biggest assets, we will begin to help you develop those assets and help your economy grow. So I think if that's the message that the government and the corporate leaders need to take. I love that, is that, you know what? Let's don't talk about punishment. Let's talk about reward. Let's talk about inclusiveness. Let's talk about how we do use love and empathy and compassion to solve this crisis. And that you're right. If the leaders of things like Coca-Cola and Google are saying, hey, you know what? This is a pretty bad thing. And we know that your country is having some difficulties financially, but if you'll get behind all your people, including the ones that you don't think are worthy of your getting behind we will help you turn your economy around. We will reward you financially. And I think from that perspective is a wonderful idea, Carlos. And I'd like to hear you maybe extend that a little bit, because that is a response from love. That's money becomes then an expression of love instead of an expression of reward and punishment. So I'd like you to comment a little bit on that, if you would.
Yeah. Well, it's unfortunately, and there's a lot of legacy from colonialism. There are a lot of unhealed wounds, and so there's a fair amount of resentment towards European civilization, and that's where I see the resistance. So that's why I think the love approach is more effective. And especially if you identify what's the unmet need at a societal level, you could target the support or the carrot this way. At the end of the day, sometimes greed can be harnessed for good end, and say, hey, you want this financial support. Do you want this development program? You want all these things? Well, then you got to change this, and so they got to wait. What's the payoff of this? What's the payoff of this? So you got to give them a better alternative, but it begins with engagement, and the U.S. has disengaged from Africa in a way that's created a vacuum that China has come in. And China, under their mercantilistic philosophy, they come and do business and they don't have any concerns about human rights. And, from an African nation that's starved for investment, technology, if, whoever's willing to give it to you is not asking any questions, you go for that. So I think it behooves Western countries to not cede the space to China and in a way compete for the minds and hearts of those societies.
Yeah, because that's the thing, is that the really heartbreaking part about this is the fact that they're not realizing that the LGBT community is actually a tremendous asset to their own GDP. Here in America, I know from being part of the National Gay and Lesbian Chamber of Commerce, LGBTQ people add something like $1.5 trillion to GDP, which would make us the 10th largest contributor to GDP in the world. So if you look at it from the standpoint of how do you turn this into an opportunity to improve economic conditions, then you can begin to see your assets as your people as assets and not as liabilities. And I think that's the problem I think we have right now, is that people see people in power see their people as liabilities, and we need to have a mindset shift in some way. And I think it can be encouraged by what American and European business leaders have discovered by seeing their people as the primary assets for economic growth and recovery.
Correct.
So I think that's a very, very good. Let's see. We got somebody who put something in and see what they have to say. There's a group called Open for Business that is actively engaged in working with companies in various countries to promote the positive of being inclusive for LGBT citizens. They have programs in Kenya. That's great to know, Jeffrey. And you know what I would appreciate you to do offline? I'm actively looking, because I'm engaged. I'm committed to this. I went to Africa about a year and a half ago and met a fella who is now my business partner, and he's on the ground to help me save some lives and bring awareness around this. And so I'm out there every day actively looking for people anywhere I can who can help me and support us in this cause. So if you've got some things that you could tell me about, please send me a direct message on Facebook or LinkedIn, and let's have a conversation about these organizations, because I'd like to get to know them. I'd like to maybe bring somebody on our show that's doing them like we did Carlos, because that's really what that's how I'm using this platform today, is to bring awareness to it, so we can be a beacon of light in this darkness. Okay, so Jeffrey, thank you for letting me know that, and please let us know what else you can know, and you can contact me directly for more about that.
Yeah, that's exactly what we're talking about.
It's exactly what we're talking about, because there might even be like I know there's something within the banking world. I know that there's some kind of like a group of bankers, CEOs that are all part of something that we're have a summit every year. And a year ago, they expanded their stakeholders beyond their shareholders. And I think that here's a great opportunity to expand that, and for CEOs and corporate leaders to expand their stakeholders to include all the people in the world, most especially the African people right now whose lives are at risk. What else would you like to talk about, Mr. Legaspy, from your perspective here today?
Well, it's again the to remember that business can be a force for good. Unfortunately, there's been kind of this rejection of the business world. That's a bunch of greedy mofos that and that's an old meme. That's an old program. The whole idea is this: transform it and harness it and turn it into a force for good, and also for profits. It's a huge market. It's and it's one of the few areas of the world where demography is favorable. The population is still growing. There's a lot of potential there. Unfortunately, it has not been put on the radar of many Western companies, and maybe it's time for a reevaluation of that and saying, hey, what kind of business can you conduct there, and what type of education and transformation can come out of that.
Exactly. And that we started a new organization, a new nonprofit that you're one of the founding board members, the Diamond Mine Academy. And why do we call it the Diamond Mine Academy? Because what I discovered in a desert was what the Africans basically cast away as worthless. And those are the LGBTQ people living in the Kankama refugee camp. Now, when I went and met these people, I discovered diamonds. I discovered brilliance. And what I have discovered is that when you wake this diamond up with just a little bit of love and support, when they come to life, they're the ones that are going to be changing the world. And if we can help others see the diamond, the light in all the Africans, not just the LGBTQ Africans, if we can help the world see the light. I mean, I know deep within my heart that the African people have a huge heart, and there's a diamond in Africa that's opening that heart up. And so that's why we call it the Diamond Mine Academy, because what other people and what the government right now is, particularly in Uganda, sees as worthless and not fit for living, I see as the most brilliant opportunities for the continent of Africa.
Correct.
You know, and that's what we're going to begin to wake people up. And so I want to pivot over now to what we're doing and what I'm doing in Africa with the Diamond Mine Academy. And I have some really very good news today. And we have decided to open up the Diamond Mine Academy. One, we've gotten very clear that we're out there, that we're founded under this commandment, to love your God with all your heart, with all your mind, and all your soul, and to love your neighbor as yourself. And you're going to look at the top of our website page. That's how we're building the Diamond Mine Academy. Okay. And so what we've also done today is we've removed the barrier and created a lot more options for people to donate to us. You can now, it costs us about $1,000. We estimate it costs us $1,000 to move one person to a safe house in an urban location. And so our project is, we got about 1,000 people living in the camp we need to move, because they're in the gravest danger. Because what's happened now that they've passed this law, it's made it kind of like targets for homophobic gangs within the camp to come in and attack us and rape us and torture us. And fortunately, no one's been killed since this has happened, but life is pretty miserable in the camp right now. So we've made the focus right now of the Diamond Mine Academy to get our people, our students, to safety. And we've also opened up the options for people to donate. Now you can join us and participate to save someone's lives for as little as $35 a month. So if you've looked at our website and you felt like, $1,000 or $100 a month is too much for you, we have now opened up that opportunity for you to donate for as little as $35 a month. So there shouldn't be any reason now, because almost anyone in America can afford to put together $35 to save someone's life. If that's hard for you, then you can put together a group of people and you can come up with it as a group. But we've tried to make it open, and we've taken out any barriers we had of affordability to give everybody an opportunity to participate in saving lives. So that's really what I wanted to say. And I don't know if I've even announced that to you, Carlos, but Abba and I just finished this website today. So you can go to our website at www.diamondmineacademy, and that's spelled with an E, not a D, www.diamondmine.academy.org. And you can, for as little as $35, make a donation and save someone's life and participate in this very, very important program. So I invite you to please go over there and do that. Also, Carlos, before we get on, I want to come back to you for a moment. And you're not afraid of standing up against the giants. And I want to give you a chance to talk a little bit about the power of love to change something like the good old boy network of Wall Street. You are a Mexican, you are a bisexual man, and you're one of the oldest minority-owned investment banks in the world, and you stood up to Wall Street, and you're winning. So why don't you talk a little bit about that here, and talk a little bit about your book and how that could be a very good place for CEOs and other leaders to start to see the power of love in your leadership as the CEO of this investment bank.
Well, it's funny, but it's going to be a year since my book came out. The book's called Going for Broke: How One of Latin America's Largest Financial Frauds Became a Blessing in Disguise. And in the book, I talk about how I got myself into a lot of trouble. I literally got framed for massive fraud that I had nothing to do with it. Actually, I was the one who blew the whistle on it. But such is our litigation system, and I will say viewed as collateral damage for some of largest financial firms on the street. And I was able to pull through. And I tell that story. I tell what are the lessons from the experience, the gifts from the experience, and I leave the book in a cliffhanger because it's I even though I came on the other side, the fight against these firms has continued. Primarily is Deutsche Bank at the epicenter of the fraud, and I this week. In a related lawsuit against Deutsche Bank got found by jury liable for $95 million, which a good portion of it is going to go to the victims of the fraud, which I'm very happy and have been collaborating with the liquidators that represent the victims. And myself, I have my own fight against Deutsche Bank to hold them accountable for what they did. And it kind of nailed me to the cross, and I just climbed off the cross, and now I'm chasing them with that cross. So let's see what happens. That the result will come out this summer. And
okay,
yeah.
Well, we put the link in what's the name of the book again, and they can find it.
Going for broke. Going for broke.
Yeah.
Available in most retailers from Amazon, Walmart, Target. You could find it in any of those retailers.
Well, I'll tell you, I read the book when I first in an advanced copy, and it is truly like a James Bond novel. And when you realize, and then when you've got, I mean, Carlos is great. He names names. He doesn't, these are people we're all familiar with, and he just tells the truth like it is, So it's really quite an exciting book to read because it reads like a James Bond thriller, but it's based on a real story that is his life. So I highly recommend to anyone out there who's interested in seeing how love can prevail in a difficult and challenging and dark environment to go to look at his book and pick it up and read it, because it will be something that you will enjoy, and it can change your life. So thank you, Carlos, for that book. And it's been exciting working with you for the last couple of years to help you with this whole thing. And it's just really been exciting to me. And I want to thank you publicly right now for being, you've been a part of this whole community since the beginning. And you are one of the founding board members of the Diamond Mine Academy. And I'm just so grateful for your love and your support that you're giving us to this community, and also for your willingness to continue to be an advocate for those who need you the most. So thank you for all of that.
Thank you, Martin. And thank you for the work you're doing. So
yeah, it's fun doing it together. I'm glad. I love holding hands with you, dear. You are a beautiful man to know and be friends with. So we're at the end of our half hour today, and I want to again thank Carlos for being with us and give you some information. If you'd like to find us, you can find me at www.diamondmineacademy.org. You can also find out anything you want to find out about me on my Linktree account, which is Martin_Cowart. So please reach out to me. We'd love to have we need all the help we can to raise awareness of this and to raise money. So thank you again, Carlos, for being with us today. And thank you to all of our listeners who have been listening, and may love and prosperity prevail.
Bye-bye.